Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to the Uncommon Podcast. I'm Josh, this is Chris. We are the Uncommon Podcast. Here in this channel, we're going to have unique conversations about topics that are sometimes difficult to discuss, often stuff that people are just talking about in their basement. That's what we're going to do today. Today, we're going to talk about how people change. People change. You know, Chris.
There's the radio play.
I'm not gonna go.
Hello, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about? God bless you.
Thank you.
About people changing. You know what inspired you to share with our audience about the topic of people changing?
You asked me that when I kind of dished this out because I wrote it down when I put it in my phone, and I don't remember what triggered this topic.
It was the subconscious
in my mind. Yeah, but when I started thinking about
this
morning when I was getting ready for work, and I started thinking about why did I think about that? What would we talk about? What was I even thinking? What was my process behind writing that down?
Right.
And my mind
My
mind went on this trail of relationships. And not just, yes, my primary focus is my relationship.
Of course.
But also like friendships and relationships with your family. And I started on this path, and this is just where my mind has grown to. I started on this path sort of in bitterness towards my ex, probably both my exes, but
just natural. It's natural.
I started to almost throw pity. We talked about cynicism in our last episode, and
right?
Started going down that road a little bit and saying why I don't understand why we are where we are. I should not expect things to change. I just fell into this sort of self-righteous attitude about the whole.
You're thinking about it. You're processing.
But
right.
But it's sort of true in so many ways when we talk about life. And I think I talked about us wanting change when the situation isn't exactly appealing to us. And then expecting things, not wanting to change from the point when we're comfortable with the situation, and then expecting, and then surprised when they change into a situation that we don't no longer care for, tolerate, whatever term. And so it surprises me when we talk about people changing that we don't follow that all the way through. We want it to happen. We say, yeah, I hope that change. I hope tomorrow gets better. I'll make tomorrow better. I hope so-and-so's better tomorrow. I hope so-and-so sees things different. Hope so-and-so sees things my way. I hope, whatever the situation is. And we, and then it does change, right? The change does happen. And sometimes it's change that we don't want to happen, but it happens. A change happens. But we're not honest with ourselves about that change. We want things to change a specific way. And we're not accepting of every possible change that can happen. And we get stuck in that expectation for when people change. Or we expect people to change and they don't. Or they don't change as fast, right? Because the reality is people change. Life happens. Every day changes you in some way, shape, or form. It may not be as intense some days or significant some days as it does in others, but it does happen every single day. Life changes us every day. The stuff we do today, creates a step in the path that we're taking long term. Right? And I think I just, in thinking about this, I thought about like why our mental stability doesn't allow for, in a lot of cases, doesn't allow for us to think about all of those steps. We want it to happen, and then when it does happen, we want it to stay here. We only want it to change for so long until it's the place that we want. Right? All the while we're changing with this situation, we're not changing in the way that we need to. Changing with that person. What do I need to be doing then to stay at pace with this change of positivity? Or what do I need to do to change who I am, or who I need to be, or the circumstances of my life, so that I don't change in the way that they're changing. The change in growth, not in negativity, kind of deal. But I think
positive change, because it can be negative change. But I think you're leaning towards improved behaviors, whether it's actions or words, primarily, like how you're treated or choices that are made. That is kind of what we're getting
attitudes, perspectives, like anything that I mean, a good example is the movie Back to the Future, right? And like that whole concept, if we were allowed time travel, right? We go back,
it's real,
try
man.
to change, we go back and we change something, changes the entire trajectory of our life.
Parallel universes, man.
Creates all kinds of paradoxes.
Yeah.
But think about that in terms of like our future,
different time thread.
So if I were to, when we talked about this briefly, my personal change in growth and trajectory could have very well, had you been a different person, outgrew our podcast and outgrew our friendship. Was the example that I initially gave, because my faith got stronger, my perspective changed, the way I handle situations changed, the way I talk changes, and so all some of those things, or all of those things, had you been a different person, you could have said, I can't even relate to you anymore. Like I'm not like a faithful person, so like all this faith stuff that you're talking about, not for me. Per your perspective is all out of whack. You don't want to talk about girls and whatever anymore. If you were in a different perspective than me, that change that I had could have outgrow our friendship and cause us to go separate ways because of the way that we think. And so I think it's recognizing that like we change every single day, but also like recognizing so do other people, because I think like that opens up all these other doors. Like I've had people and hurt people that have hurt or traumatized and haven't fully come out of that trauma, which is everybody goes at their own pace. But I've heard people tell me that people can't change. And God reminds me to stay in grace when this happens specifically. And I remember him telling me frequently in this, because I almost get offended that when people say, and they're not trying to offend me, but when people say people can't change, I have to 100% all the time disagree with that statement. Because if I ever agreed with that statement, then I would have to believe that me as a struggling to become a healthier man could not get there. I could not change.
Yeah, which is untrue. You can change, and you 100%. Have in positive ways, And everything that I wanted this podcast to become even more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, I think
So that's been awesome.
The more we talk about this stuff,
but some people don't change. I think certain personality types, it's a choice. People stop growing.
I think.
Can everybody change? Yes. Do you want to improve and be better? Yes. Not everybody wants to be.
I think that's not accurate. I think what I was going to say at the tail end of
certain personality types.
people can't change,
like
or people
disorder
won't change,
personality types.
I think that's ignorant because they're still changing. They're just not changing in the same direction.
I guess you're right. You know, that's not accurate because they're usually perfecting their imperfections.
Yeah. And
They're-
the interaction with
you
you,
know.
when whatever choice you make,
Mm-hmm.
impacts what direction or how fast in that direction they're moving. Right? You know, it's just a game of bumper cars.
Dang! For a reaction, there's a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, bouncing, moving, energy.
Yeah. So if you were, we talked about cynicism.
Good and bad energy.
If you were a cynic, right, and I didn't join your team, then that would probably, in some way, either entirely change your perspective on me and my type of person as you saw me, and whatever group of people you grouped, you know, against me, change your entire perspective of people like me.
Right.
So that created a change in you, or it could have made you question your current position in your cynicism, which gave you a stepping stool out of that in some way, shape, or form. I think people do change. For me to start this episode and saying, people change every single day. Well, that includes all people. All
people. So there's like a change scale, is what I'm hearing. Kind of, you know what I mean? Like the crazy hot scale. If for those of you that maybe have heard of it, or the F around and find out scale. The more you F around, the more you find out.
Yeah.
You know, if you F around 40% or 80%, you're going to find out the equal percentage, etc.
Say that, like in
I think that's the change scale too, because people change negative or positive.
Right.
You know, there's a scale to that, and then that's going to reflect onto others. You know, like someone that's maybe close to me or you changing negatively is going to impact us in a different way, or those that are growing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's going to allow for you to grow too. There's a fire, or you're putting it out. You're the start of the fire, a good fire, you know, because there's fires that we just have to put out all the time. We've talked about that being in crisis, and like, I'm talking about like good heat is what I'm discussing, you know?
Controlled. Yeah. It's
you
there
know
for
a
purpose. Right, it's not out of control. It's
right.
not there to like burn stuff down.
Yeah,
and hurt people
for progress.
It's there to keep us warm,
lit up, like
that
type of analogy.
Create light.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the fire analogy that you created. That was like,
thanks.
Really,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really good
because we are that light, you know, in the world, and it is a dark world, and people will try and put your light out, you know, through cynicism or people changing negatively, their personal experiences of hurt people. We've learned, you know, and sometimes we are that, and we've learned how to not be that. So this is a unique topic because it allows for you to really understand, and I think also be more conscious and considerate that, you know, we all struggle in different ways. I was looking for something to post on the podcast and on our Facebook, and I had to come across. I'll have to find it and actually post it, but I don't know if you did or I did, or I found it and haven't posted it, but it's an image of this person. A man is trapped on a rock, leaning forward, trying to help a girl who's hanging on a cliff. But in between, there's like a lion or a snake right there. And she's like, why can't he just get a little bit closer? And he's like, why can't she just move a little closer? She's about to get bit by a snake.
No,
he's stuck on a rock.
Yeah,
but she's also about to fall off.
But they can't see each other's
pain and burden
situation.
Yeah. So we never know what we're going through as a message, you know. It was like,
you never know. I mean, not to give excuse, like rudeness,
well said, yes,
or like negative and that kind of stuff. I mean, we've talked so many times about people having a choice. However, I mean, God teaches us to have grace, right? And like, I'm rewatching.
We're saved by grace.
Yes, 100%.
That's one of the beauties of the virtues of the Holy Spirit.
100%. I'm rewatching The Chosen, which if you have not seen The Chosen, you really need to see. It's very, very well done. Anyway, it's one of my favorite series of all time. But in the series, it's reminding me about that, like how simple grace actually is.
Hmm.
How difficult socially we've made it for ourselves to show grace. And I will admit, excuse me, it's a constant struggle for me to, and my exes will they'll be like, yeah, for sure. Like he doesn't ever, they might even say stuff like that. And I'll admit it's a constant struggle for me to fully show that. But it's something that we lack when we don't pay attention, or we're not aware of the other person's situation. That's where we lose that grace. Like no matter, it's okay. They might be acting irrational or overreacting, or it's misaligned anger, or misdirected frustration, whatever term or emotion that is happening. And not that there's an excuse for that, but also like we're not in that situation, so we have the opportunity to show grace in those situations. And instead of taking offense and staying there, I'm not saying that it's not okay for you to feel hurt. It's not okay for you to feel some kind of way as a result of that. But also, they could be pinned under that rock and not sharing that with us.
That was one of the takeaways that I had when I saw that image. Was what was lacking there was communication, because instead everybody was thinking about themselves too, And
that's
go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, that's the key in maintaining. I mean, that's the glue that holds the whole people change scenario together. Is like being honest with whoever else that change is happening. Like I made you aware several times that I was changing and I was growing and that kind of stuff. And I mean, you were already a very healthy man and friend and person in my life at that time anyway. So I wouldn't have expected you to not do this, but you then processed that and accepted that growth in me, and in a lot of ways grew at the same pace, because you knew well, Chris is growing, and that's just what we do. That's part of like the strength of, I think, our relationship is that we inspire and motivate and push each other without pushing each other. Like I'm not sitting here telling you, Josh, you should do this, and you should be better at this, you should be better. And you're not doing that for me, but because of our attitudes towards and our competitiveness, you say, well, Chris is working on this, like maybe I should take an opportunity and like look at that myself. Or when when you're coaching your kids and you're doing all this stuff, it inspires me, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm not. Not that I'm like talking bad about myself, but like maybe I should be thinking about other stuff I can be doing with my kids and trips that we can take. That's a great idea to go to your family Glenwood Springs recently, and I have not taken my family there. That's a form of growth, right? And so that's what you said about nation. If we don't have that, and you just grow into this absolutely different person, and we don't share that with each other, what do we say? We grow apart. That's where that whole thing comes from.
Right.
And so I think, on the basis, to catch everybody up, like recognizing that, like how silly it is that we're surprised when people change. You changed. Well, yeah.
Like
did you expect me to be the same?
Right.
Because if I was the same 20-year-old, now that I'm 40, so many people enjoyed my company when I was 20 because I was dumb and entertaining. But if I was that same person today, at 40 as a father, they'd lock me up. And so I think it's silly.
People change
when we're like, you've changed.
Like, well, yeah.
Okay. Like the question kind of changes have happened.
Yeah. What's new?
Yeah. Like a genuine, I think when we say that, like too oftentimes it's generalized.
Yeah.
It's like small talk.
It's like a hi.
It's like a hey, yeah.
Hello.
Like, do you really care?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in some cases. But
Mhm.
like, but
well, and it depends on the relationship, because like when you ask me what's new, I'm going to give you a very different answer
Mhm.
than someone that I don't trust as much.
Sure. Because we have that relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah. 100%. And that's part of our basis of communication. But I mean, you and I both know. And this last time we didn't see each other for what, like almost 2 months.
Mhm.
It's like 6 weeks, right?
Mhm.
So with both of us having crazy family dynamics, like
Right.
so much,
Mhm.
you know, and well, you're part of the glue that holds our relationship together in that instance, because a lot of times I just want to get down to business, and you're like, well, hold on, like, what's going on with you? Like, how is life? You know, and without that, I think we would lose,
Mhm.
you know, part of our relationship. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you
for that. But I think we lose that in our relationships with that concept of people changing, because we can't avoid change. It's inevitable.
It is.
Even if people say, well, he's stuck and he's stagnant, he's the same person. He's not the same person.
Yeah, life changes us.
Yeah,
things happen to us.
100%. And if we don't communicate that with each other as we're growing, then absolutely, we're gonna grow apart.
Right. And that could happen on different levels. Relationships happen like that, you know?
Yeah.
An example, like in the workplace, for example, like my supervisor knew that I needed a change. So he kept encouraging me to put in for a different department. And the time and opportunity worked out really well to where now that's what I'm doing. I'm in a different department. I'm learning new skills. Everything's different. I'm challenged now in a different way. So now I'm changing because my knowledge is growing in a different capacity, which ideally I'm told should open up more opportunities, which is why I'm going through this process, you know. But it reached that point where my soup knew that I was at a point where, look, like, you need to take these skills elsewhere. Encouraging of that, you know, which is good because he was a part of that change, you know, in a good way. As opposed to, I've been in scenarios where managers are not looking to help you in that capacity. They just want to take your successes and call them their own, you know. So there's just a different type of how to handle that change, you know.
So that's a great little like side segue into like our own personal change, right? And sometimes I think we have a hard time. So you said that really well as an example of accepting your own change and growth in your career as it is, not as how you expected it to be.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Because I think, and I think you've shared this a couple of times, that you applied for several other promotions along the way in this journey, right? And they fell through, or they altered everything.
Yeah, this one particularly
hired in, you know, whatever the reason was, and your disappointment, and like it was a little deflating, but you're accepting where things are. Without that attitude, you couldn't have gotten to this point. Like your supervisor, team leader, you know, whatever, you know, title it isn't. I apologize, but
no, you're fine.
If you didn't recognize, if you had a shitty attitude, about the situation, you wouldn't have been. He would not have considered you for this. No. You would not have had continuous opportunities, and this is the opportunity that you needed, because you're expanding your skill set. You're not in one section.
Yeah, that's true, because it's an added side of the business, which should more opportunities. So yeah, that's true. And I didn't want to do that for the longest time, but it turns out that it should be positive. Stay tuned. I'll tell you more as time goes on.
I'm sure it will be. But I think we forget to do that in ourselves. Like we feel, and at times, and sometimes more than others, we recognize our lives are changing, and I feel like there's some expectation problem within that we don't feel like our life is changing the way that we wanted it to. And so we don't accept it for a period of time. Whereas, like, you may have struggled with those decisions along the way and felt like you deserved those promotions at that time. This is the place that you're really supposed to be in, and this is the way life is for you right now. And you're very accepting of that and create opportunities for you within that. Whereas, again, if you had focused on, oh, well, like, I'm probably just going to be stuck in sales or, stuck doing this job forever because, the universe or God or whoever doesn't want me to do anything else. Right. Which is an entirely different attitude than
completely different
than what you have. Right. Yeah. And so then by doing
I hear that. I hear people talk like that all the time. I'm like, well,
yeah.
Well, then that's what it's going to be, because we speak that into our lives, whatever that is, good or bad. We have the power of life and death spoken by the tongue.
And I think that's a lack of acceptance in the change that's going on. We just don't accept, and we say it frequently. Oh, I don't want things to change. I want things to be the way they are all the time.
Yeah, not really.
When Tasha and I were like first all of like our entire life kind of exploded, right? And everything kind of came and overflowed, and we had our disaster over my discovery and her discovery and all these things that were coming out. One of the things that at least two of our therapists reminded us is that we didn't want to go back to the way things were, even when we were the happiest. And that was I couldn't grasp that at first. But the reason he said is because that time we're both still unhealthy. You want to be better than that. You want to be always better than the next day.
Oh, wow. So they were telling you, geez.
Yeah. So there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot of layers to that.
A lot of layers.
I think we do that. We have a habit of doing that. As we not only do we not want others to change, we don't want sometimes our lives to change. Or when we pray for our lives to change, and they do change. We stop accepting that change when we're comfortable, and we don't want it to change after that in whatever direction. And so we stall because we're comfortable, and we don't grow. And so it's a lack of accepting in our personal change. And, in the crazy game of bumper cars, every reaction has action has a reaction situation that changes the course of things. And I think we forget that very simplistic piece of our everyday life, that like we're going to change, but what do we decide to change to the next day? That's really what's important. And we know that if we're changing, so is everybody else around us. And are we going to accept that change? And are we going to make the choices to grow positively with people? Or are we going to make choices to grow negatively with people? It's kind of the choice that we, that we have the luxury. It's a gift that God gave us.
It is. It's a blessing to have that,
to make those
choice of consciousness.
It's a blessing and a curse, I would say, because if we accept that gift, we have to take responsibility for the negative things that we allow in our lives. You can't just have one.
Yeah, well said.
It's a whole.
You can't give that permission.
Yeah,
can you give it power?
Yeah,
and you want to give positive things power in your life, like our faith.
So, know that we have a choice, and that choice is a gift, but we also have to take responsibility for making the bad choices that we make within those. So, maybe don't waste them.
Have you heard Shia LaBeouf say something where, if things aren't good, in the end, everything's going to be okay. And if it's not okay, then it's not the end, type of thing.
Yeah, that's I've heard a similar quote that talks about a challenge. This is the end of the you survived every other challenge in your life because you're still standing here, you're still breathing, you're still alive.
You survived 100% every bad day.
Survived every single bad day up until this point. So there's nothing that historically will tell you that you're not going to survive
Mm-hmm.
this.
That's the one guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
He's like, you survived 100% of your bad days. You're still here. And he goes,
yeah. Yeah.
In and out of his car or something.
What does he say? It was not thought of the day, but it's
something like that, though.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah. Man, that's
good. That's good. How do you want to put a bow on this? This is a good one. In conclusion, how would you conclude this, sir?
I think it's just challenging our listeners, challenging our followers, challenging the people that that are paying attention, that want to grow, that everything changes. Right? We're changing on a daily basis. That means others are changing on a daily basis. That means we can accept that people can change. And they can change for the worse. They can change for the better.
Mm-hmm.
But they can change, and they will change.
Right.
And so, maybe stop saying that in the universe that people don't change. People can't change. People aren't going to be different. People are always going to be the same. Well, you're going to see the same things in people the longer that you think that way. That doesn't mean that those people are what you think that they are.
Right.
It's just your perspective, right? So just
it's perspective for sure.
Recognizing that, and then also accept change, whatever that may be, because some change is not good, but it's there for a reason.
I think the key is starting with yourself. You know, understanding that, and we talk about boundaries, too, Chris. And so during those changes, recognizing what are those good and bad changes with people around you, and some personality types, maybe they are stagnant and toxic, and making sure that, you change so you don't need to be brought down. So, like when I say you, I mean you, me, whoever that is, as you're growing, to protect that peace, because you want to build a beautiful building and just destroy it, right? You shouldn't. Some people, I guess, would do that. But if you've worked for something to be a nice dwelling or vehicle or whatever, you want to protect it. And so, like yourself, you want to protect yourself as you're building yourself. Get some security on it. Get some fences up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get yourself a firearm.
Learn
how to use it correctly.
Not creating a war zone. Oh my gosh.
Is that a war zone?
I mean, there's something to be said about yes, protecting your sanity, but it's all it's all about choice, right? It's
choice.
All about letting that person be as they are and maintaining the person
right
that you are, to get sucked into their pool of pity or
pool of pity. That would be a good band name.
Pool of pity. That would be a
good
band
like
name.
rock
That's
band,
like 90s or 90s.
90s.
Like
that could be kind of cool.
Grungy bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. We just did something.
Oh, that was awesome.
Something for the 90s.
Let's go. I'm going to put that in my note.
Oh man. In any case. We have too much fun.
Too much fun. Well, thank you for bringing that topic up. That was definitely something that narrows in, where we all are, I think, every day, as far as understanding, people changing, because it happens. Like you may reconnect with somebody, especially at our age now. People change. You've had friendships or people you know for years, like 20 plus years, and sometimes that's what it's like. It's like, often it can be quite enjoyable to reconnect with somebody that has changed positively. Sometimes it's not as enjoyable, and so that's something that's not, I think, just generally discussed from a day to day. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because it's something that needs to be recognized, and we all go through those things, and being accepting is key, starting with yourself, and just being really truly self-aware of where you want to head, in those changes,
right,
and holding on to those choices dearly, like you talked about, because it is a choice. And that's the difficulty is, as we grow, we're making good choices, bad choices to be where we want to ultimately be in our lives. And so we get that opportunity to write that story for ourselves, and we get to bring who we want on that journey. And that can be good people or bad people. You want to make sure that you're heading in the right positive direction.
Yeah, I love that. We choose who we are, or we choose who's coming with us on our journey. Right?
That's
so
for sure.
Got, like toxic people, or narcissistic people, or cynical
people, yeah,
or negative people in your boat, on your journey.
You're drowning.
Plane. Yeah,
and you're playing your freaking.
You're definitely not. Yeah,
you're not flying, dude.
Yeah, you're not gonna stay in the air.
You're being way down. Exactly.
You're not gonna stay afloat. So I love that.
That's good.
Absolutely.
Well, again, Chris, thank you so much, and for all of our viewers and listeners, thank you again. I'm Josh. This is Chris. We are the Uncommon Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.